Hi everyone, it's Gothic Layman here. I've decided that I've neglected my YouTube channel. I've neglected all of you guys, and I figured I should come back to you guys now, and I'm stripping myself back, getting very vulnerable here, and decided to talk about my self-discovery and my self-journey to being a goth and why Gothic things is my passion and why I love and enjoy them so in-depthly, especially my morbid sides and my paranormal interests. So, as a kid, I grew up in Wollongong till I was about 4 years old, and we moved down to a town called Quorma, which is a 4-hour drive from Oak Flats, Wollongong, and another 5-6 hours from Sydney, if I give or take. I'm not 100% sure, you'd have to Google map it for me, but I lived in a very small country area, very backwards thinking country area too. Farming kids, everyone knew everyone knew the well-known farming names and families. Was even, if you entered a showgirl competition, it was guaranteed that one of the big farming family kids would always win that. That's how, small this area was. We even got on this weird discussion about, in primary school on the bus, I remember, about if you are a bastard. That's how backwards these kids were, and this is what I grew up around. So I grew up on a property. It wasn't a proper farm or anything. We did have cows and Shetland ponies, but that's because I wanted the Shetland ponies. And I would just go for bushwalks. That was my thing, going for walks on the property, helping my dad out a lot. I was a very big tomboy at the time. I had 2 brothers. I was in this place that was just so exciting and fascinating. I love the smell of morning dew on trees and leaves. That was my favourite smell, and I always found something very mythical and enchanting by my property and the trees, and my imagination could run wild in this place. Coming from Wollongong, we soon figured out that buying good clothes was just really not an option. Would get muddy, dirt on them, so that's where second-hand shopping came in for me. My dad would take us nearly every weekend, or every time we'd go shopping, we'd end up in a second-hand shop, and that was like my favourite place to go. And my parents would literally let me run wild with my clothes. They would let me buy what I wanted. So I was able to express myself fashion-wise from a very young age. And I appreciate that, and that experience of buying horrible things to things I really love, and finding the stuff that really suits me and I really love. So that's followed me to this day, my love of secondhand shoppings, and something I used to do with my dad. So school was generally, I had no friends in school. I just couldn't find my place with the other kids. Don't know why, I just couldn't. I was getting names like Feral was one that comes to mind. I guess it started from my mum. Everyone used to joke that she looked like a witch because she would wear black clothes, a jacket, trench coat, and a floppy hat. She was going through depression during that time, but I didn't know that because she never talked about it. Not until I was older I realised what was happening. But people used to joke that she was a witch, but she was my mum, so I really didn't care in that sense of how she looked. That stuff didn't really bother me at all, and the kids gossiping and stuff, that never bothered me either. My mum's a very morbid-minded person, and she loves to dwell on the past a lot. Just growing up around a morbid person like that, I guess it rubbed off on me a lot, her morbid attitude to things. And I did enjoy Lily Munch and Adam's Family, so I got tidbits of them as a young kid to watch them. And I do remember watching things like Nightmare Before Christmas, Juice, stuff like that, never knowing what they were called or what that they had associated to Gothic type themes. I watched a lot of vampire things with my dad because we used to watch a lot of movies. So I watched Interview with a Vampire with him, Dracula. That was sort of when I was getting my first tidbits of Gothic themes, per se. So as I got in primary school and started making friends, I made friends with 5 sisters, and they were obsessed with their mum. They lived a very hippie lifestyle. Their parents, very organic, full-on hippies, self-expressed. I became friends with these 5 sisters and their family, and it became nearly like my second home, you could say. This is where my first love of Stephen King came from, this family, because I remember watching Rose Red with their mum and just being so fascinated and in love with this movie and the ideas behind it. There was Tess, Alicia, Leah, Cassie and Rebecca. I didn't have much to do with Rebecca. She was the older sister in high school. Cassie's the same. I had more to do with Tess and Alicia and Leah, and it was sort of a hard triangle to keep up with the friendship because I'd get jealous of each other. But one thing I do remember is we grew up, Charmed had come, the TV series Charmed, and Perfect Magic and all those witchy related stuff was coming into the mainstream TVs at that stage. So we used to pretend we were witches and just fascinated with this show and the love of this show and the ideas behind it. So they eventually moved away to another school, so I was left to fend myself in primary school, but I was cool with that. I loved being a loner. I enjoyed the idea of being to myself and keeping away from other kids. I just wasn't the striving type for that social recognition. I didn't want it. And I'm still friends with Tess and Alicia and Leah to this day. So that happened to me. Next, we would every school holidays, I would go to my nan's house in Oak Flats, Wollongong, just for 3 to 4 days. And I remember this so well. I was just starting to step out a little bit more into darker subjects and darker interests. I remember watching Candyman. About 6 or 7, I first discovered that movie. My cousin actually rented the movie, but she put it on and she left and didn't even watch the movie. So I ended up sitting there and watching Candyman, and I was like, wow, where has this been? I just loved the whole dark concept of a horror movie and the storylines behind a horror movie and how in depth, if you really think about it. So that's where I got my first sort of passion for horror movies and darker movies, as well as watching everything on the side that I was watching. Then I remember seeing this teenager. I was only 6. I saw this teenager across the road, and it just changed my world. It was like a light bulb moment. This person just looked amazing. I can remember him quite well. If you might be in your 30s, 40s, older age now watching me, in Oak Flats, near the Viddies there in Oak Flats. So if you're that person, please say hello to me. It was the essence of post-punk. The jeans, the ripped jeans, the jacket. He had a mohawk for his hair, really high mohawk, and that was green. The mohawk was green, and he had the shave, both sides shaved, but he had bits of hair sticking out, and they were orange, those bits. And just seeing this person just really changed my world and my thinking. And it kind of all molded together then for me. Started to buy more darker clothes and I started by not dressing in my darker clothes at home. I started by when I'd go up to my nan's house, I would start wearing these darker clothes at my nan's house. I guess I felt a little bit more confident by the idea I wasn't at home around people that knew me just yet. I was starting to express myself really darkly with a bit of black makeup, a little bit of an attitude to follow. Dad and me, how I found music. So I might as well get there is, my dad is a musician. He plays guitar and dabbles in a lot of instruments, and I was a 2-year-old kid, and I was just fascinated by the music that he was playing. Loved all those rock legend songs like Stanley Clarke, Eric Clapton, Santana, all the classics he was a big fan of. So my back tattoo actually is a music flower on my back, and it's because of my dad and the passion of music from my dad that he instilled onto me. So I took onto his music, and I still love rock music to this day. Rock is my favourite genre, but with my darker mindset that I was developing as a kid, of course, I wanted to find things that fitted me with music. So that's when I started to try and self-discover more darker aesthetic sounds. That's where I discovered Murder Dolls and The Cure at high school. And I'm not going to do high school story because that will just be too long of a process to talk about. But that's generally the stepping stones of how I found myself as a young adolescent child to self-discovery. I will do a high school story next. Please leave comments below. I'd love to have a very deep and meaningful discussion with you people, because I think we don't do enough deep and meaningful discussions anymore. So, thank you for listening.